Soul samples are easy. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I made one of my recent soul samples, down to what instruments that I used, to the music theory, and quite literally everything. Now, a lot of different people use a wide range of instruments when creating their soul samples. Like, some people use organs and upright pianos, but it doesn't really matter what instrument that you use, as long as the instrument itself is an acoustic instrument that sounds alive and vintage. Vintage is a bonus, and then you're basically good. However, this doesn't mean you can't use a synth. You just can't use some crazy harsh synth that you hear on like some Skrillex beat or something. Obviously, it has to mesh well with the vibe that you're trying to do. Take Purple Hearts by Kendrick, for example. But before we get to anything else, first we have to lay down what is our main idea. Well, great question. We use some type of piano. Doesn't matter what piano, a grand piano can work, an upright piano can work. But however, for me, for this beat, it's the E piano, the Rhodes. And this is what it sounds like. Sounds good, right? So how do I play that? What's the theory behind it? Thank you for asking. Thank you for participating in my classroom today. Now, if you don't know already, we are in the key of E flat major or C minor, doesn't matter. But we're gonna say that we're in E flat major for this tutorial today. Okay, now first you gotta know what the number system is. And if you don't know what the number system is, essentially you put a number to each and every note to the scale, and that's essentially it. So for example, this is the 1, this the 2, this the 3, this the 4, this the 5, 6, and the 7. Bada bing, bada boom. Do you know how to make a chord? Apparently you don't. Okay, that's fine. This is a chord. You just skip every other note in the scale. You got a chord. Now, extended chords. This is where we get really jazzy with it, okay? Okay. You have your 7ths, your 9ths, your 11ths, and 13. But in this beat, don't worry about the 11th and the 13th. We're only going to be playing the 7 and the majority of the time 9th chords. So how do you play the 7ths and the 9ths? So you have your regular 9ths, your regular 7ths, right? Which is basically just the 1, the 3, and the 5, and the 7 relative to the scale. Same thing with the 9th. But instead of playing the root note with your right hand, you play the 3rd as you're starting. So that way you don't need 5 chords all with your right hand. So it's so much easier, right? Anyway, so without anything else, this is what I came up with. Sounds okay, you know what I'm saying? It's doable. However, this is where we introduce inversions. And not only just inversions, but inversions to help us actually play it better and smoother and less hassle to move our hands wherever it needs to move. Let me explain. So what are inversions? An inversion is when you take a note from your chord and you move it up or down the scale. So for example, let's do this one. And we put it down. And essentially it's the exact same chord, but it sounds different, has a different voicing and a different feeling, but it's the exact same thing. And essentially you have different inversion types when you're playing the piano. It's the exact same concept. It's just telling you how many times are you gonna switch up your note. So for example, you have your first inversion, your second inversion, and your third inversion. So for example, this is your regular chord. That's your first inversion. Second inversion. Third inversion. And you can tell which inversion is which by asking yourself, okay, which 2 notes are right next to each other on the scale? And if it's in the middle, then that's the second inversion. If it's at the top, then that's your first inversion. And obviously if it's in the bottom, That's your third. Capiche? Capiche. Okay, moving on. This is where it gets really, really cool, okay? I'm gonna use different inversions for each chord, and then you'll notice which inversions did I use for each chord to make it more cohesive and less physical labor on my part to move my hand all over the keyboard. And plus, it's just gonna sound better, to be honest. Just like that. Oh, groovy. Smooth. Oh, goodness. Don't get me salivating up. And since we got our main idea out the way, next up, I wanted to add some more piano to our already existing piano. But instead of an electric piano, still regular old grand. However, we're not going to play the exact same thing. Just listen to this. Yeah, I know, it sounds really good. So what did you do? Well, essentially all I'm doing is playing this one chord in the third inversion, and then the exact same chord but in a different inversion, which is the second. And then in between those, I'm adding these little things called sixths. What are sixths? It's really easy, it's really simple. So instead of just playing, and that sounds pretty good, you know what I'm saying? At least you got a little like idea out of it. However, adding this little simple sixth just elevates it to the next level. And it's so simple. Instead of just playing whatever key, whatever note you want to play, you play the sixth note as well in that scale at the same time, and it adds so much more character to whatever you're playing. Just listen to this. It's a really simple trick, and it can get you so far ahead and make you seem better than you think you are. However, now that we got our main idea out the way, it's time for our next most important instrument to come about and talk about, and that's the bass and the bass line. Oh boy, do I love a bass line. This is what it sounds like. But what did you do exactly to make this bass line sound really good? Well, what you got to understand about the bass is that the bass is the glue between the percussion and the melody. Essentially, it can be both at the same time. So that means what's important to make a really good bass line is bounce. Not always just using just one note and just leaving it there, but have some bounce to it. That alone, even if you don't do any licks or do different types of notes out of your root note, can make your bass lines go to the next level easily. However though, since you did ask, Nate, how do I play out of the actual root note? It's really, really simple. In terms of bass lines, your go-to notes playing like those little like crazy licks and everything is going to be your 2, 5, your 7, and your octave. And sometimes 4. And this is all relative to the root note of what you're playing, obviously. And then you just combine that with the bounce, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're going to have a good bass line. Don't worry, I did give you a MIDI example for you to actually show you what I'm actually talking about. So I'm just not talking and expecting you to know what I'm talking about. All right, so for example, this is our root note right here. And then just for a little bit, I just used the 2 relative to what we're playing. And then right here, octave, 5, 2, back to the root. And then go back to our usual line, 6, 6 to the 1, to the 5, relative to the 1, 2, and a 3. And sometimes you could do a 3 if it, contextually sounds good. By any means, do what you want to do. Now, remember when I said, oh yeah, just use all live instruments? Yeah, we're going to break that rule. We're going to use a synth. However, again, we're not going to use some harsh synth like a saw, but something soft. And it's actually just going to be in the background of everything. Just like a little arpeggio, you know what I'm saying? simple enough. I'm using the exact same chord as our grand piano, if you didn't know. So here we go to the guitar. Next up, let's get into it. There's really no explanation to this. It's just a melody that my mind came up with. But what you can get out of it is, again, live instrumentation. Sound selection is king. But that's not necessarily the only guitar that I used. However, it is the only melody of the guitar. I'm just going to be using different types of guitar sounds. Like the next one is going to be a really heavy delayed guitar sound to the point where you can't even hear the strings. It's just a really heavy delay or reverb. I forgot which, but however, it's just in the background. And we do have a third guitar layer, but let's get to that later. For now, let's get to some other string instruments like violins, harp, and yeah, let's just check it out. So let's start off with the strings. So what I had two layers, one on the left and then one on the right. This is what it sounds like. Essentially, it's kind of following the grand piano that we played earlier. And speaking of that, I went ahead and got some other string instruments, a harp, and then a nylon guitar, a VST one, which, I mean, doesn't sound too bad. I just kind of replicated what I played for the grand piano. And with the violins and everything, this is what it sounds like. Now it's time for that other guitar layer that I was talking about. Now, the reason why I was really hesitant to talk about this one specific guitar layer is because you wouldn't really think to place this right here. But I just think it just sounds good. It's a distorted guitar. Now, that might sound that just sounds like a lot, right? It takes too much space in the mix. I just wanted it to be subtle, even though it's something that is supposed to be loud. So I added an EQ, bada bing, bada boom, just like this. And also I went to the utility and I made it mono. And so with everything to this part completed while adding some chimes in the background, this is what it sounds like. It sounds pretty good to me if I do say so myself. However, we're not done here particularly. I wanted to spice things up a little bit, and not by just adding something different, but just by playing something different. And I'll give you an example and the reason why I got this inspiration to change some stuff up. Now, let's go back to the strings, okay? If you just play the strings and the harps and everything, you notice that it's a different chord progression. It's a regular old 4-1 chord progression in the major scale. And that's pretty cool to hear, especially knowing that when I started to play the chords in the beginning, I had no idea that I just coincidentally made a 1-4 chord progression inside another chord progression. And so we're just gonna replicate that 4-1 with the bass, and bada bing bada boom, we have another part of the beat that sounds pretty cool, especially in combination with the first part. And then it's like, oh dang. So really it doesn't even feel like a different section of the beat, but more so like a natural progression of how the beat should go. And honestly, that's the reason why I love music. A lot of the times, your best stuff is probably gonna be unintentional. And that's the beauty of it. It's happy accidents, man. Just you live, you learn, you laugh, you listen to music. But then again, I know that this video was mainly for a sample, but I couldn't help but put some drums into it. So here's the full beat with some drums. It's acoustic drums, not no trap drums. I'm sorry, I just felt like it fit better. So yeah, go ahead and take a listen. Being completely honest, when it comes to soul samples, 80% of it is just sound selection. The other 20, you can make it as simple as you like or as complex as you like, and it's going to sound good. I mean, assuming that you know how to make good music already. But if you are kind of struggling to make melodies, and don't worry, I've been at that position too, go ahead and click on that video right here. It can help you maybe. Just maybe. I don't know. I might be onto something in that video.